this generation of Caribbean people and Caribbean women are the ones that will change that. We are the ones who will basically say, generational trauma, no more.
Hi everyone, my name is Juanita. I am the founder of Caribbean Collective, and today we have a special guest, the wonderful Sarita Nauth. How are you today?
I'm great, how are you?
I launched Caribbean Collective in 2020, and it had been probably a 5 to 6 year dream of mine. And Sarita, you could probably relate, but growing up here in the US, I felt like there was little to no representation of West Indian women. And a lot of the times when I did see West Indian women, they're grouped into bigger ethnic groups. But what was missing is the cultural component of that. And so I wanted to create a platform that really elevates and highlights West Indian women, and that is the birth of Caribbean Collective magazine. Sarita, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
When I was an intern with Emmy Award-winning makeup artist Andrew Sotomayor, while I loved learning how to do makeup on women of color, and that was sort of his specialty, I didn't see much representation both behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And as you mentioned before, you know, you don't really see Caribbean women. If they're there, they're not really loudly and proudly saying it, because there's not really a platform for them to, you know, say that they are Caribbean, which is the importance of the Caribbean Collective magazine. I started off in fashion design at a very young age as well. I was inspired by my grandmother, who was a seamstress in Guyana. While I wasn't raised, you know, with her being a seamstress impacted my fashion career so much, because that allowed for me to expand on beauty and fashion and lifestyle, and inspired the work that I've done at VH1 over the past 8 years.
Amazing. So one thing I want to circle back to, you touched on cultural identity. So how do you identify as?
So I was born in Guyana, and I left Guyana when I was 3 years old and was raised in Belize, Central America for about 5 years.
You speak Spanish?
Oh, un poquito. I speak a little bit of Spanish, and I will say that it definitely molded my cultural identity in a very hodgepodge type of way. I was a brown girl in a predominantly Spanish-speaking town and country. I really didn't have any understanding of who I was. I still felt like I didn't fit in those spaces. I still felt like I wasn't accepted. I didn't have a Guyanese accent. I didn't have a Spanish accent. I've always known that I didn't want to work in traditional spaces. Like I've always loved media and entertainment. And although I didn't see myself represented, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. But then with that, I also lost touch of who I was in the process, because I didn't have an identity attached to my country.
Right.
As I've gotten older, I've learned that being a Caribbean woman is something that I'm incredibly proud of. And it's something that I lead with pride now with, because we are not a monolith. Caribbean women are so extensive. Our people are so diverse.
Yes, and you know, I love that you said that, because that's one of the biggest reasons we even started this platform. It was, I think a lot of people don't understand the diversity that's within the West Indies and the Caribbean. One thing I want to touch on, you know, you mentioned feeling like you didn't fit in, you know, our platform serves women with a hyphenated identity, Caribbean American, Canadian Caribbean, you know, women who are in Europe. You know, we have this fusion identity where either we are our parents or our ancestors are from the Caribbean, and we live in a Caribbean household, but we still have this more Americanized, or, you know, a Canadian or European society that we've assimilated with. And so one of the things you also touched on was being the only brown girl in a more Latin community. I want to talk about colorism, because that's a big thing in the Caribbean, and it's a big thing in the Latin community, across many communities. But do you think it still exists, and have you experienced it?
Well, I will say that colorism, unfortunately, is alive and well in the Caribbean community. And I think it's something that plagues our people, because it kind of limits us from being celebratory about our people and our culture, because it kind of divides us just based on color. Being able to pay homage to my ancestors, to know that there were brown women who were indentured servants, who took a risk and came on a ship with no idea what's to come. That was something super important for me to highlight, because I didn't have any photos of what my ancestors looked like. I didn't have any photos of how my mom's family looked like, or my dad's family looked like. And I really do think that colorism has affected our people to sort of kind of limit us.
I want to transition to talking about something else that's really important. But you and I, we've had conversations about auntie behavior.
Ooh.
Toxic auntie behavior and body shaming. That's a big one. Okay.
Yeah, so I never experienced body shaming when I was growing up in Belize because I was very, very skinny. Okay. I was definitely teased a little bit more for being darker, which didn't really affect me. But I will say that as I came to America and my body took shape and I started to develop more, I was very much bullied more from family members than I was my own peers about my weight. I will say that toxic auntie behavior impacted how I looked at myself beauty-wise. I didn't feel as beautiful because I felt like I was defined by my weight.
Right.
When I consider
because it kept coming up and they kept pointing it out.
I consider myself a very successful woman, not defined by sort of anyone. I've been able to break through in an industry where there aren't that many women like myself and Caribbean women. So I hope to be an inspiration, and I hope that it's not being led by my weight. And
it shouldn't be. And I think our generation is going to be the one that probably puts an end to some of that toxicity.
I hope so, because our daughters and the children that we raise, we want to empower them to say it doesn't matter what shape you are defined by your own success and the effort that you put out there. It's more important for you to have confidence versus walking into a room and feeling, sort of you're leading with your body first.
And it shouldn't be.
It unfortunately sucks that I've heard many stories from many young Guyanese women, especially with the work that I've done with the Guyanese Girls Rock Foundation. I've been able to hear stories from young women who are also still plagued by toxic auntie or mom culture.
Comments,
and the comments are sort of, they hurt every single time someone says that, because it makes you feel like you're just not going to be beautiful enough.
And the problem is they're ingraining it into a culture of young women that are very young, impressionable, and they're creating complexes. So we talked about, your identity as a West Indian American woman. You mentioned being Indo-Caribbean. In the Indo-Caribbean community, we're obviously a fusion of Caribbean and South Asian culture. But there are some spaces where a lot of Indo-Caribbeans don't feel accepted as South Asian, right? That's a big one.
I think that it's really important for us to give our flowers to the South Asian women who have done the work over the years in the TV and film industry. From Mindy Kaling to Simone Ashley from Bridgerton to Golda Roosevelt.
Plays the queen.
Yes, she plays the queen in Bridgerton, and I feel like not many people know that she is a proud Guyanese woman. It's such a beautiful thing even to recently see the success of Bridgerton and Simone Ashley sort of rise as a proud Tamil woman who's darker skinned, but also being the love interest in the show.
And the lead,
Yeah, it's so important because what was brought to the show really was her cultural identity in such a proud way, and she was able to not be demeaned down to how she smelled, to how she looked, or just having a minor role or being a housekeeper. She was the lead love interest, and we get to know her. I think that because while she is not a Caribbean woman, it still speaks very much to our women to see ourselves represented in that space. I think that the more that we continue to elevate Caribbean women as a whole, there will be more opportunities for our women moving forward. And that's the reason why these conversations are so important, because West Indian women are not just one sort of look,
We're very diverse.
Very diverse across many regards.
Yes. You are currently with VH1. I know there are a few passion projects that you're heavily involved in. One that I'm super excited about, obviously, is Caribbean American Heritage Month.
Yes.
And so I also want to talk about, Black Girl Beauty and what that campaign was like, and how you think some of the work you've done there maybe can translate into the Caribbean community.
In 2019, I created and creatively produced VH1's Black Girl Beauty. And the whole purpose of that series was to spotlight Black women who are already doing the work in the beauty community, but also getting down to sort of the geographical and economic sort of impact that Black women have had on the beauty industry, both financially and
just being pillars and pioneers. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And Black women have always been pioneers for women of color as a whole, as far as representation goes, across marketing, right down to shades in a foundation, and the access to beauty. Part of Black Girl Beauty, the inspiration behind that was that I worked in the beauty industry for such a long time, it was so disheartening to see so many women of color being told to go back home or that you're not as important. Never mind, you're probably the lead model for a campaign. While I'm very happy that VH1's Black Girl Beauty was something that I made from my heart and moved the needle in the beauty industry, I'm glad to know that there's other Caribbean women spotlighting the beauty industry as a whole, like Andrea Lewis, the actress from Degrassi, is also a proud Caribbean woman who is the executive producer of the Black Beauty Effects series.
Wow, and so, see, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, and her series also spotlights the same issues that Black Girl Beauty does as well in a larger space, and she's also collaborating with influencers like Jackie Aina and Nima Tang, and I think that it's really important that there are other Caribbean women behind the scenes moving these conversations along. And it's really honestly something that I'm very proud to know that this series had an impact in that way, because now I feel like other Caribbean girls can know, hey, like there are other Caribbean women behind the scenes that are
in positions of power as
well.
Yeah,
absolutely. With that being said, being able to use my power in the beauty industry, but also in the entertainment industry, has been something so important to me. I recently produced a series for VH1 for Caribbean American Heritage Month with the Queen of Dancehall and Grammy-nominated artist Spice and Love and Hip Hop Atlanta's Carly Red.
Love her.
And yeah, both women. Spice is obviously a proud Jamaican queen at this rate, and Carly Red is a proud Trinidadian woman.
She is, yes.
And what I loved is that for years I've seen West Indian and Caribbean people on our shows, but I wanted to spotlight them in ways that were not being seen both on linear and on our social accounts. With this series, I was able to have these ladies sort of sit in their Caribbean pride, and talk about their culture and taste test different foods and across the Caribbean diaspora.
And I think that's super important, because this goes back to, you know, obviously we all know Spice is Jamaican, right? And so, you know, watching Love and Hip Hop, although sometimes it's included in there, it wasn't necessarily the main highlight. And so I feel like this is great that there's an actual production for the Caribbean cast, where we see them experiencing Caribbean culture, talking about their heritage, and it's not something that's just a feature. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that I will say, I didn't realize the impact this campaign would have until I received a message from Spice the next day that basically said that I'm so proud of you.
We talked about representation. Do you feel that there are enough platforms that represent Caribbean women?
In short, there aren't that many platforms that represent Caribbean women as a whole and spotlight them, but there are some great organizations like the Caribbean Collective Magazine, like Brown Girl Mag, like Brown Gal Diary.
Yeah.
These are other platforms that do celebrate brown women and Caribbean women, and I think it's important that we
carry that torch.
We carry that torch, but also celebrate and elevate one another. These conversations will continue to spark more organizations, more meetups and panels, and sort of movement across the culture as a whole. West Indian women are not here to solve generational trauma.
So while we recently just, you know, passed Mental Health Awareness Month in May, that's a biggie, right? A big taboo topic in the Caribbean community. And I know for us, one of our first lives was with Jay Bless, shout out to her. She is a staunch mental health advocate, and it's just such a taboo topic, right? We don't cover it enough. So what's your experiences or your thoughts on mental health in the Caribbean community? Are we starting to uncover some more of it, unpack some of it, and you know, are we headed in the right direction?
This generation of Caribbean people and Caribbean women are the ones that will change that. We are the ones who will basically say, generational trauma, no more. We are not dealing with that anymore. We are not here to clean up after somebody's son. We're not here to clap roti at 4 a.m. We're not here to do these basic sort of boxed stereotypes and archetypes that our culture have put on our women. We know that our ancestors, from all regards, especially the women who came here to these countries or were brought over, were trying to have a better future for their lineage. And I would like to think that our generation will be the one who will say that we're not going to stand for the fat shaming, the colorism. We're not going to stand for the domestic violence that we see happen so often in our community.
That's a big one in the Caribbean community. Yeah.
And it affects the mental health of our people and our women so much so, because therapy is not elevated. Therapy is not celebrated, even if it's just conversation.
Right. It's looked at as taboo, or it's, you know, you're crazy, your head no good, things like
Yes.
that. And so when people do need the professional help, they're afraid to reach out.
Yeah. And I think that it's important that we have these conversations and have these spaces where Caribbean women feel safe enough to go to say, hey, I need help. Because oftentimes when we do try to ask for help, we suffer in silence, we suffer and we have pain. And a lot of times that's the reason why suicide is really high amongst our people.
Yes.
And that's something that we don't talk about enough because we are not told to bring these things forward.
Right.
So I think that having a safe space both inside the home, but also with our peers in the community,
having a support system.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, a lot of times Caribbean women feel like they don't have a strong support system at home.
Caribbean Collective as a platform, we celebrate a lot of progressive ideas. I wanted to talk to you about the idea of the modern day Caribbean woman. What does she look like? Do you consider yourself a modern day Caribbean woman?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the modern day Caribbean woman is someone like myself, like yourself, like a lot of the women who follow Caribbean Collective magazine, but also there is a large part of our people who need women like us to say we are not here to be one thing. We're not here to follow the footsteps or career paths that our parents want us to, but the passions that actually make us happy, the creativity and the art that will inspire us to move forward and make change in this world.
Right.
I think that by having anything limited other than what you learn in your household, sometimes you do have to expand outside of your household. Sometimes it is okay to go outside of your culture to then find yourself. So when it came to understanding my cultural identity and sort of becoming the woman that I am today, I had to sort of lose myself in order to find myself again. And I feel like oftentimes we're scared to do that because growing up Caribbean, you're not told to take any risk. You're told to play it safe your whole entire life. And my brand has been quite the opposite when it comes to my career choices and the path that I'm currently on. So knowing that I really had to speak from a place of authenticity in order for me to then now feel confident in being an inspiration to other women to say you can be in a space where you can be both Caribbean and proud of your culture and heritage, but also live your life the way that you want to do. You don't have to be exactly what your parents are telling you to do, or your aunties are defining you by, or your uncles who have no idea what you do define you as.
I want to thank you for having this dialogue with us today. I think we touched on so many amazing topics that a lot of modern Caribbean Day women think of and banter about behind closed doors too. I'm excited to see much of your work to come, and I think that this was such a great experience, and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it's so important that we're highlighting the conversations, like you said, that often happen behind closed doors, and it's super important for us to bring them to light so that way other Caribbean women feel like they have a platform like the Caribbean Collective magazine to share their stories and hopefully also inspire people. And that's the one thing that I want to do, is to make my people proud.